Hey everybody, it's Dana Joy from Got Joy Creations back today to show you a jewel tone card I made with very little supplies in my stamp room. I really like people to know that they can make something really pretty in their stamp room without having to have a lot of supplies on hand. So today's card, I'm just going to start with a cut down piece of paper of Nina Solar White cardstock, and I'm going to use a Chevron background stamp. I really like this background stamp, and this one is from Heidi Swap, and I believe I picked this one up at Michael's with a 40% off coupon, or is already 40%, something along those lines. We're going to use some Versamark ink, and I'm just going to go ahead and dab this on to the background stamp. I'm not going to put it on a block or anything since the stamp is really big. I don't need to go ahead and mount it. I'm actually just going to turn my paper over on top of it in order to get that impression on my paper. I'm just going to make sure I have enough ink on here because I don't want to end up missing any spots on my paper. So I think that about should cover what I need, and I'm just going to go ahead and pick up my card front and line it up with the stamp and just press it down. Now again, all I'm going to do is just rub the stamp into the cardstock. I'm going to grab a piece of copy paper so I don't get my hands all messed up, and where I can press the paper into the stamp. Okay, I think I pressed that in pretty well. I have everything covered. I'm just going to go ahead and take away the copier paper, and then I can gently pull the paper off. Now, you're not going to be able to see the print on that yet because VersaFine is a clear ink, so you're not going to be able to see until I add some embossing powder. So I'm just going to go and grab my clear embossing powder. I keep it in a larger tin because that's the embossing powder I seem to use the most. I'm going to grab out my little spoon, and all you're going to want to do is just completely cover your stamped image with the clear embossing powder. I want to make sure I get good coverage on this, and then I don't have any spots that are, when I go to heat it, that did not take the embossing powder, because I want to make sure that my design stays pretty consistent. Okay, I'm just going to make sure I kind of get the embossing powder everywhere as I drop my card front into the embossing powder. Just going to go ahead and tap some of that off, but you can kind of see some of the chevron design already. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab my heat gun. I'm going to tap some of that off to make sure I don't have like a clump of it on there. And I'm just going to go ahead and start heating it up with my embossing tool. This is going to take a few minutes, so I'm going to actually finish this off camera, and I'll come right back after everything's melted onto the paper. Okay, everything's done, nicely heated. So now you can see the design that's on the paper. It will look really pretty just leaving it this way, but I'm actually going to add some more product to it. So I love my distressed ink. So I'm going to start with the Wild Honey, and I'm going to grab my circle applicator, and I'm going to use 3 colors on here since this is going to be a jewel tone card. So like I said, my first color is going to be the Wild Honey, and I'm just going to start off of the card and start working the color in. And when you're using distressed inks, what I love about them is that the colors blend very well together. So it's not like, you know, sometimes you can try to blend 2 colors together and it can kind of come out muddy. That just doesn't happen with distressed inks. So the next color I'm going to use is the Picked Raspberry. I love this pink color. So again, I'm just going to start off the card and bring the color into the card. Again, this is a really easy way to make actually your own pattern paper without having to go out there and, you know, have a whole bunch of different colors. You can just use your distressed inks. So this last one here is another one of my favorites. This is the Peacock Feathers. I love this blue color. It's probably one of my favorites out of all of the distressed inks that I own. And so as you can see, there's so many variations that you can do with just 3 ink pads. See, so you can see already we have not used a lot of product. So I'm just going to work it in, and we get a really cool design, and the colors seem to meld together to make different colors. So that's the beauty of using distressed inks. I'm just going to wipe some of this off gently with a towel so I don't get it all over my fingers. Okay, that's good. I'm just going to clean up my work area so we can move on to the rest of the card. Now I'm going to use my favorite things rectangle die cut. This has a pierced border all the way around. And I'm going to grab a smaller one, and I'm going to just go ahead and run this off camera through my Big Shot. Okay, now since I have that piece done, I'm going to use my speech bubble from my Oh Hey AVL set, and I'm going to place it a few times around on this card front. I actually want to mask certain areas, so I'm going to go ahead and grab my masking paper. And I love this stuff because you can hold on to your die cut mask and use them again at a later time. So I'm going to go ahead and cut 2 of these out of the masking paper, and I'll be right back. Okay, everything's die cut out now. Now I'm going to place speech bubbles in each one of the corners and leave that center one open so I can go ahead and cut the speech bubble out of that paper. So this way my sentiment can sit right in the middle, and it's not going to be covered up with any of the color we're going to add. So next, all I'm going to do is try to find a corner to grab to get the masking tape paper released. It can be a pain sometimes, but if you can get a nail in there or a pair of tweezers, you'll be fine. So since the sticky side's on the opposite side, I'm going to have to move my die cuts to the opposite corners. Okay, so I have that one there, and I'm just going to go ahead and place the other one in the upper right-hand corner. Just get everything cleared out of the way there. I'm getting unstuck from the paper. And we'll just place that die cut there. So this way now I still have the center open here that I can make sure I have enough room for my sentiment. So what I'm going to do is just grab the leftover ink that I had from the daubers earlier. And that's how I'm going to add the color to this white cardstock. So it's going to match that very vibrant background, but it's not going to be overwhelming. So it keeps the colors consistent without having to, you know, pick up another piece of pattern paper to match, and everything's not so white. So I'm going to add the last color. Oh, there's a lot of pink left on that one, but that's going to be okay. There's no mistakes in card making. So I'm just going to add a little bit more of that pink in the corner. And we're good. I'm just going to clean some of it off again so it doesn't get all over my hands. And then I'm going to go ahead and die cut that center out. So I'll be right back again. So everything's die cut out. I can put that aside now. And I decided to use a different speech bubble. I wanted a smaller one instead of the larger one. And never, ever, ever throw any pieces out. You can use that for another project. So I'm going to clear off my workspace and grab back in that white smaller panel that we cut out earlier. And I'm going to lay it down so I can get a pencil and circle around the speech bubble so I know where my sentiment's going to be. And it's going to end up being lined up on that paper. So I'm just going to move everything around to make sure I have everything straight. I want everything to be even before I start writing or actually tracing around that speech bubble. So I'm not going to press too hard when I do this because I need to erase the line afterwards. I just need to make sure that when I place my sentiment, it's going to be directly in the center of the speech bubble when I pop everything up later. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab my AVL set, and I'm just going to use this just for you sentiment out of it. I'm going to line it up first in the speech bubble and grab my block and make sure I have everything lined up correctly. Nope, I shifted out a little bit. Hold on, let's try that again. Just going to go ahead and make sure it's in the center of my speech bubble. There we go. And I'm going to grab my VersaFine black onyx ink because I like how this always shows up on the sentiments. So I'm going to tap some on there. But I'm going to tap this off on a scratch piece of paper because I don't look like I'm getting full coverage on there. Yeah, I'm not. So I'm going to have to grab an eraser and erase some of the stamp. Because it's brand new and I haven't used it, it's missing a part of the T, so it wasn't getting covered well with the ink. So I'd rather have learned that then instead of putting it on that piece of paper and ruining it. So I'm just going to go ahead and re-ink back up. Okay, and now all I need to do is line up my sentiment right in the middle of that outline. I'm going to press kind of hard here so I know I'm going to get a good stamped image. And voila, we are smack dead in the middle. Perfect. Okay, So all I'm going to do is grab my other piece to make sure I was right on target, which I was. Perfect. And now we no longer need those lines, the light lines. So I'm just going to go ahead and erase those with my pencil. That was just to make sure that we had everything lined up. So those can go. We don't want to see those when we put the card together anyway. So now I'm going to grab my card base, which I normally just do a white card base, and I'm going to actually take my chevron piece and mount it with black. It'll really make the colors pop. So I'm going to do now is finish putting the card together. I'm going to use my Chevron runner as my adhesive today. And remember, like I always say, when you send a card, you do not want it falling apart in the mail, so you need to make sure you use really good adhesive. So let me just get that card base out of the way so I don't get it stuck to anything. And now you can really see what having that black border around the edge, what it really does to make those jewel tones pop up off of that the card base. It looks perfect with that black line around it. So for my next layer, I'm just going to lay it flat. But can you see how it's very muted and the colors work together because it's not very striking on the top, but the bottom piece is. For this next layer, I'm just going to lay it down so I have a nice white border around the colored piece that has the die cuts in it. Okay, I just need to make sure that I get that right smack in the center of the card. I don't want our card to be all wonky looking. So I can just go ahead and press that piece down. And then this piece here, I think I'm going to want it to be popped up. So I'm going to grab some dimensionals and go ahead and put that layer up so it's just not sitting flat against the card. But you can tell just by putting a card together with just 3 colored ink pads how great we ended up having a very pretty jewel tone card that actually has really, really bright color as well as subtle color. So again, I didn't use any other paper or anything like that. We were able to create our own in really a very simplistic way. It wasn't hard for us to go ahead and put this card together. So I'm just going to go ahead and start removing some of those pop-up dots. After I thought about it, I probably should have just used my tape, my foam tape, and just cut larger pieces. But hey, this is live card making, so that's what you get, people. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep flicking these little pieces off. And one has gotten stuck to my finger. So let me clear that. And we're going to go ahead and finish putting this card together. I'm not going to add a whole bunch of other fuss to this because the chevron background is very, very bold. So I'm not going to add any ribbon or anything else to this. Maybe some jewels later, but I don't want to really add too much. So I'm just going to line that up to make sure I'm over my sentiment correctly. And I think I am spot on. Let's go ahead and press that down. So look how pretty that card looks. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my white card base. And I think for this black layer too, I'm going to add some pop-up dots. I just like giving dimension on cards. But the only thing sometimes you have to worry about is when you go to mail these items. Sometimes, well, I know at my post office anyway, sometimes if the envelope is really thick, they charge you extra for the postage because they don't actually want to run it through the machine. So they want to, make sure it doesn't get bent up, which I really appreciate from my mail people here. If your dimensions are too high, I would suggest putting it in an envelope, but then putting it in a bubbled envelope. Those brown ones that you can mail like pictures and stuff in. So if you want to make sure that, when you're sending your card, it's getting to the recipient, without it being torn up, because I have received cards in the mail from people that I know have spent a fortune on putting those cards together and making them look pretty. Lo and behold, the mail person didn't take that into consideration when it was shoving, they were shoving the card through the machine. So, take pride when you send your stuff so it doesn't get damaged by the time the recipient gets it. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish picking off the backs of these foam adhesives. And then our card is pretty much done. Oh, I'm loving how this card turned out. Absolutely love the colors. And like I said, these are my favorite colors together. I do think I need to add one more thing because it looks a little bit plain. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some of these gems that I had. And they match pretty much all the colors that are on the card. Probably not the red one off in the corner, but most of the other colors, it's going to match up. So I'm just going to use my stick here to pick up some colors or some gems and make sure I get them placed down correctly. I forgot that these already have adhesive on the back, so I really don't need to worry about using a stick because they're going to stick right to the paper just fine. So I'm just going to grab some colors and kind of place them around the card so we have some color everywhere. And I think the last one I'll pick up some of that orange in the corner of the card. And we'll pop that one up there. Alrighty, and that is our card for today. Wow, it's amazing what you can create at 2 o'clock in the morning and make colors look so good together. I really should change my blog to some crazy name like Night Stamper or something. Here's a completed card, everybody. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Don't forget to follow me at all of the links right here, and take care and have a blessed day.